Nikke! Just for reference, I play on global server. I've been playing this gacha for a while, and I can wholeheartedly say I actually recommend it. Now, I've been pushing more into the story recently, as I've mentioned in a YouTube short. I don't know if any of you have seen that, but I only recently just learned that this exclamation mark in the top does allow me to click on and find my daily missions. Other than that, I would previously go through the mission pass, so I'm still learning. But with that being said, I can actually recommend this game. I've been playing through it, not necessarily just through the stories, because I do like the story of this game, but I've primarily been going through events, and then obviously with Nikke's themselves, I've been going through the advisement system and then their respective cases or episodes. My personal favorite is obviously Epinel, followed by Soline. I really like Polly. I did hers recently, but I think for the methods that I originally went through, it was Epinel first, then Soline, then Lapis, Milk, followed by Polly. And I do like Polly the most. I still haven't necessarily done any of these top row characters, but overall, I'm enjoying myself. As you see here, I have a lot of SSR characters. I also have a lot of SRs. I don't build a lot of these units, but I am still nonetheless having fun with the game. I am still learning, and I do think there is a steep learning curve, especially because for certain instances, you can't necessarily find guides on everybody, and a lot of said guides can be multiple years old. But other than that, I do like it a lot. The Gacha system, I enjoy. However, I will state that recently there was a collab that is obviously a limited character, and upcoming is half-year anniversary, so we're getting stuff for that. I have to see what that's like. But beyond that, just the regular standard gacha system, I enjoy the wishlist system. I wish Blue Archive had something like this. Blue Archive adds pretty much every banner character to standard, like Nikke does. The downside is, of course, BA has no wishlist system, and so even though in Nikke's case, you have your standard banner here, followed by your usual limited or at least rate up banner, and then your friendship banner, but we don't talk about that. BA usually only has one banner, or two, which is just consisted of the rate up characters, and then standard off to the side. There is no wishlist system for either of those. And with the bloated amount of characters in BA, you really have no real guarantee, honestly, to pick up the character you want that's on banner unless you have 200 unless you do essentially 200 pulls or get 200 tickets. In Nikke, yes, you theoretically need 200 tickets, but these are cross banner, which I like a lot more because I can individually say, okay, yeah, I like Bay, or maybe I'm looking to get a maximum broken character. I can wish entirely on this standard banner here, and I will still have the mileage ticket to buy out the next on banner character in the future. And that's exceptional because in my opinion, this system does give you the freedom to say, okay, well, do I want to sit here and say continuously pull on Bay's banner or whoever's banner, or do I want to spend the mileage tickets and save my already existing stash of gems and pulls? For me, I usually go for spending these first and then saving the mileage tickets, but I haven't been in a position to where I have gotten unlucky enough to need to decide that. I think my unluckiest banner was in theory Rem's banner. And yes, I did get the skin because it's cute. But in regards to that, just pushing that aside for a moment, depending on the amount of time you have, because I understand that a lot of individuals who either sit on my channel or watch it either from the Blue Archive or from the Genshin Says HSR era, which we're kind of in already. This game, in my opinion, requires much less time than either one of those, save for BA, but BA is kind of iffy depending on whether or not you're doing the story. Nikke is too. In general, you have essentially 4 sections you're going through daily. If you ignore campaign, you're going to your arc and you're essentially doing interception, the simulation room once, and then tribe tower, which differs depending on which one's open. The arc is essentially the main majority of your time will be spent here, and then secondarily will always be the outpost, whether that's collecting resources from here or just going in and dispatching. Speaking of which, I have nothing to claim here. I don't know why there was an exclamation mark. Why is this red dot here? There is nothing here. Whatever. And whilst I don't necessarily do anything here too often, like, yeah, there's a bunch of people I can talk to. I don't care about a lot of these characters. It still exists. And even if you, let's say, aren't logging in consistently, and maybe you aren't doing your dailies, you do still have the ability to passively gain resources because your outpost defense builds up. So in theory, you can log in once a day, claim the outpost defense resources, level up and get some gear. And whilst this gear is going to be lower level than the stuff you can get from special interception, this gear does still allow you to level up and essentially advance the equipment you already have, which I do like a lot. And so I feel like in the grand scheme of things, Nikke is very respectful to your time. Yes, you can devote a lot of time to maybe going through your favorite Nikke, and maybe you're advising them, or maybe you're doing their episodes because you really like them. In those instances, yes, this can take time. But this is no different than Blue Archive's relationship storylines. This is no different than the club stories or the main stories. So I'm not going to consider that as a point against it because that's optional. You don't have to do this. But more so, I would say Nikke is simply worth playing off the simple fact of 3 things. First, the recruit or gacha system isn't that bad. Now, yes, theoretically speaking, you can be in a position to where you feel like you have to go to 200, or you do have to go to 200. Great. But if you don't care about the on-banner character, the fact that 200 tickets, that whatever you pull, is transferable to another banner and always sits in your account is, in my opinion, worthwhile enough to make that previous points moot or at least less of an issue. Because in theory, yeah, I could spend the 46 pulls I have here and the 12k gems here and continuously pull on Bay and not get her. But all the pulls I do will count towards this ticket. And if I still don't want Bay, that means I can just immediately swipe up the next character who is either for anniversary or a character that's for a collab, and I don't have to pull. And even though in theory this is the same system as Blue Archive, you have to have 200 pulls on hand for every banner because you cannot transfer that over. It is converted to crafting stuff that I don't even think a lot of people use. Now yes, you can completely auto the game if you want to. And the only instances in which you can't do that are like EX stages, which are not that common, so you can realistically just sit back and let the game play itself. Meaning that in the instances where you actually have to do a stage, you don't really have to do one. And most of the time, if it is a major stage like Interception, if you clear it once, you can just quick battle for the other times that you have to clear it. This also applies to its event stages as well. So if you want to farm a currency for an event shop, you can just repeatedly farm that stage 5 times because you're not necessarily gated by the resin system or stamina system in this game, and instead you're just gated by either event tickets specifically or a set allotment of times you're allowed to do a stage. These are in particular allotted to either events, challenge stages, or Interception. Now Tribe Tower is a different story. So yes, even though there are stages that will require your attention, you can get by with autoing, especially if your units are strong enough to where you don't really have to worry about not having the power to clear it. Now beyond that, yes, there are a lot of events, and I personally am excited because they do occasionally give out nice skins, like this free poly one. It's great, I love it. And yes, there are some really bad systems in the game, like the costume gacha. It is god awful. Do not ever participate in the costume gacha. But beyond that, the game itself in its foundation is, in my opinion, wonderful. I do like the fact that it has a PC launcher. On mobiles, it's actually quite nice. Now there is a situation in which, yes, once you do get a screen like this, which is a skill screen, it's not properly formatted for a desktop screen, so it's more so specifically meant for phones. But that is such a rare scenario where I don't think it's worthwhile for me to say, yeah, this is god awful. No, the gameplay rotation is fine. Your daily system is fine. I do think some mechanics need clarification because a lot of times the game will say, hey, you've unlocked this new system, and then just never tell you anything about it long term. I recently unlocked equipment modifications. Do you think I know what equipment modification is? No, I do not. The most I know about is the manufacturer bonuses here. I don't know anything else beyond that. I locked SP Arena. I know the arena is in here. I don't know anything beyond that. And so I do think that with not necessarily the act of hand-holding, but when the game slowly gives you access to new features, at a certain point, the game never actually explains any of these features to you. Like, you would get a tutorial for how to access the Arc, and essentially you get a tutorial for what all this is. But the game will not teach you, hey, this is what this part is. Now, obviously there are videos that you can go watch. I recommend that. But beyond that, if you're just looking for in-game resources, good luck. By the way, I recommend it. I think that even if you're ignoring the main story for a long period of time, you can get by specifically by just doing advisement for the characters you do like, playing the relationship stories, and you can replay them if you want to. And in some cases, specifically characters like Capanel, and for her last one, there is a choice you get that does give you different dialogue towards the end. So you can redo episodes for specific dialogue choices if you want to see if, hey, maybe this has a different outcome. And once you get a character to max relationship rank, their voice lines change, which is cute. I enjoy it a lot. I like this game. I do. I didn't expect to like Lapis. Guess what? She's adorable, and I love her. I even like her voice. Ian voice acting in this game is actually pretty good, surprisingly. Play it. Play the game. Just download it. It's free. It's a gacha game. You don't have to pay money. You can if you want to. You don't have to. The downside I will say is that in most situations, you do have skins that just $20, which, yeah. Comparatively speaking, in Genshin, you have gems, but those gems can be gained by purchasing the monthly card. So it is kind of a trade-off, but either way, the skins are nice. So whether or not it's up to you to get them is entirely a different story. You can decide outright you don't want to pay 20 bucks for a skin. Just remember, it is always cheaper to get a skin here than it will be in the costume gacha. The costume gacha, it is, no, I'm a player. No. By the way, subscribe.